Thanks, Heidi. The other meeting ran a little long, so I'm getting everything set up here. It'll be just a minute.
No worries. I was impressed you had it going this quickly.
Well, it's always a juggling act to make sure all the equipment's going to work like it should.
Sorry, that was my fault, Heidi. I didn't realize we were going quite that long.
No worries. I had to change locations, so we are all good. Are we ready to go?
Just about. I'm just going to get the recording starting here. Make sure we've got all of our steps covered. And we are ready, Heidi.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Just a reminder that we are still meeting virtually and that there are multiple ways to participate. So you can either join our Zoom meeting as a participant, watch on YouTube, and call into our voicemail at 406-552-6012. And of course, there's always the option to email us. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with the roll call.
All right. Stacy Anderson. Like she's here yet. Mirta Becerra.
Present.
Daniel Carlino.
Present.
John Contos. He's out today. Jordan Hess.
Present.
Gwen Jones. Gwen is out today.
I'm sure she'll be here.
Okay, we'll watch for her. Thank you.
Okay.
Kristen Jordan.
Present.
Mike Nugent.
Present.
Jennifer Savage. Looks like Jennifer's not here yet. Amber Sherrill.
Present.
Sandra Vazika.
Present.
And Heidi West.
Present.
All right, so that means, let's see, we have got, we do have a quorum. And we're ready to go.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first item on our agenda is to be approve the minutes from the 9th of this month. So without any objections, those will be approved. And of course, let's see if there's anyone in attendance for public comment, and it does not look like we have anyone. So let's go ahead and move on to our first item of committee business, which is a contract for email security with Barracuda. And Cage is here to present on that item. So I'll turn it over.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Kay Jerkart. I'm the IT network manager for the city of Missoula. Part of my role here is to ensure the security of our network and systems and to evaluate and recommend security improvements and system upgrades. I'm here today to ask the council to approve or for approval of a 3-year contract for new service with an existing vendor, which will provide substantial enhancements to our email security and cloud storage. The contract will be funded through 3 annual payments in the amount of $60,813 per year. Year 1 of the service will be funded through a combination of ARPA and general operating funds. We will establish future funding mechanisms during the FY23 budget process. I'd like to highlight that this new service will eliminate the need for 3 existing services in IT's general operating budget at a cost of roughly $25,000 per year. That will leave a balance of about $36,000 per year to be funded in FY23 and FY24. The additional services available to us through this contract will greatly enhance our resilience against evolving cybersecurity threats. It will also provide searchable email archives necessary for compliance and e-discovery, as well as redundant backup for email and evolving Office 365 data in OneDrive and SharePoint. Thank you for your consideration. I'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Cage. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Sandra?
Yeah, I guess can you talk a little bit more about that searchable for any discovery? I guess I'm a little confused about that.
So we actually have an existing system in place. It's called eVault. All of our email is permanently archived in that vault. It is subject to discovery for various legal reasons and so forth. So, that compliance and e-discovery is what that service provides, and that would be migrated into this new solution.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions on this item? Mike?
No questions. I would just make the motion as presented.
Perfect. All right, well, that motion is in order. And then see who is first, Amber and then Daniel.
Thanks. I'm just curious. I missed a little bit of what you said about that. You said there are 3 contracts that we can do away with. Are those 3-year contracts? And you said them out, but could you repeat that for me?
So the 3 that will go away are our existing Barracuda, which we already pay for. Then on top of that, we have a Veeam backup solution for Office 365 data. That will be moved over to this new solution. And then also the eVault, which is our email archiving. Those 3 will be moved into this new single platform. And the pricing on that, so it's $60,813 per year for 3 years. And in this first year, 50,000 of that would come from ARPA, with the remaining 10,813 coming from our FY22 operating budget.
Thanks.
Daniel?
Yeah, thank you, Cage, for answering my questions via email too, and providing all the information. I just am a little bit concerned about using ARPA funds for this, although it is something that we can use ARPA funds for. Just because I know the city got roughly $14 million of ARPA funds to use, and I think people are still struggling from the pandemic, and I just don't see the IT improvements helping Missoulians who are struggling from the economic disparities of the pandemic. So I'm just I just guess I think Missoulians are going to ask what happened to the $14 million when it runs out, and just to know that the majority of it has been used so far for paying like police and fire overtime, and we have almost $500,000 for IT improvements. I just think that I guess I'm just showing that I'm concerned about where I'm just concerned about not providing economic relief for Missoulians from the pandemic with the ARPA funds. I just think it's a really historic time to have so much money from the federal government to use to help provide relief. So I was just curious what you all thought about that.
And I see that Lee raised her hand. So maybe are you wanting to address this specific issue, Lee?
Yes, please. I did just want to let folks know that a few things. This IT purchase was considered during the FY22 budget when we were allocating a certain amount of those ARPA funds during that process. Coming up in March and April, we will be bringing interim budget and project reports to City Council. And at that time, we intend to have a discussion around ARPA funding and eligibility and how the usage of those funds might look going into FY23. We do have until the end of calendar 2024 to allocate those funds. So just a reminder to folks that this is sort of a multi-year process that we have going on here. I'm here for questions.
Thank you. Amber?
Yeah, I'm hoping, there are different buckets for ARPA, and there's, I think Daniel was alluding to this. So I'm curious, I don't know who's here that might enlighten us a little bit on how ARPA works as far as the different funding mechanisms. There's some for IT that we can't just put towards something else. Lee, are you the one to ask about that, or just to give us more clarity on it?
Sure, and we'll definitely go into more detail about that when we get to that interim place, simply because we're not prepared to do a deep dive today. We do have some latitude under the provision of general government services within the Treasury guidance and regulations. So this IT component would be classified as such when we do that quarterly reporting to the Treasury.
All right, Gwen?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting discussion, and I appreciate my colleagues' Daniel's comments on, wanting to make sure that we're taking care of people. But I think it's ARPA and all sorts of different government monies programs were created when the pandemic started to not only help people meet them where they were at, but help in all different levels of our economy, and making sure that local government continued to function well, so that local government could provide those services was also a big focus. I think it gets complicated too, because we have put a lot of ARPA money into housing people who were needed a lot of help, and we've got a lot of different modalities in town right now, which I think have made good strides in a very difficult problem. And we're going to be figuring out going forwards, how can we maintain or keep some of these when we're exiting a pandemic and don't have ARPA. But in the meantime, the more we can get our house in order and streamline and be more efficient is also going to untie our hands in the future when we don't have the ARPA money coming in. So I think there's a lot of different moving pieces here, and not only different buckets, but different dynamics of how we're trying to accomplish some things as local government. So just wanted to put that out there, and I'm in favor of this.
All right, Jordan.
Thanks. I appreciate Daniel bringing up the issue. I think I agree with Gwen that I'm comfortable with this for a number of reasons, and I think a large part of that is that ARPA was a broad-based pandemic relief package that included provisions for just scores of different areas that are impacted by the pandemic, and local government is absolutely impacted by the pandemic. A great example of that is the health department running the non-congregate shelter, which was for a period of time paid just out of local funds and not being reimbursed by FEMA. And I think in other states that we're more reliant on sales taxes or types of taxes that dipped during the pandemic. ARPA was intended in no small part to be a stopgap measure and a relief measure for local government. So there's a ton of pieces in that from a housing standpoint, and a lot of that's administered through the state, but some of this local government aid is a little bit more discretionary at the local level. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in the direct service provision, whether it's home funds that are forthcoming through ARPA or other things that we have discretion at or with at the local level. But I think that it's totally appropriate to utilize these funds in this way. Local governments also saw significant IT-related expenses with the pandemic, with securing online meetings and with a general rise in cybersecurity threats that are pandemic related. So I think there's a really close connection, and I'm comfortable with using these funds in this way.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add a couple comments, then I'll go back to you, Daniel. I just wanted to remind folks that this was something that was already allocated through our budget process. And at this point, we are potentially entering into a contract for services that, monies that have already been allocated for this use. And I also think that, I tried to sell a car right after the big pandemic started, and trying to access notaries, for example, or the local title office at the county was impossible, and it made it really challenging to just execute what should have been a simple transaction. And I think that maybe that's something we forget, is how important local government can be to some really like day-to-day activities that we're all engaging in. And it's important that we maintain the level of service, to the community, whether it's, people looking for resources or developers needing to get building plans approved, or folks who are, wanting to remodel houses or trying to get a hold of us. So I think that this is really important. And I also think that this flexibility of being able to work remotely, comes with additional risks, but it also comes for a lot of opportunity I think, especially for women who are, maybe having to be a little bit more flexible with their schedules, or, work maybe in a more non-traditional way. So I actually think this is really exciting for a variety of reasons. So Daniel, I'll go back to you. And I just want to note for the record that there are still no members of the public in attendance. So I will move straight to a vote. Oh, wait, after Sandy. If there are no more comments or questions from council members.
Yeah, thanks for the discussion, everyone. Just with the buckets, I'm wondering if there's like a way for us to tell how much ARPA funds we have left and what buckets they can be applied to. Just some way for us to keep track of what we still have, and just making sure that we provide as much relief as we can.
We will bring that information to council.
Sandra.
Thanks, Heidi. So I do agree with Daniel about I'm uncomfortable with using the ARPA funds on this, but it is like we already have it in the budget. We're just approving the contract. So I will be in support of this. But I will use this opportunity to tack on to what you were saying, Heidi. It is very difficult with government these days. It's really difficult to get a notary. It's really difficult to register your vehicle. So I'll take this opportunity to say we should go back in person as soon as we can.
So I think I don't see any more questions or comments, and we still have no public. So let's go ahead and take a vote on this item.
Right. Stacey Anderson. Let's see, Stacey was in attendance. She is here, but we'll come back to Stacey. Mirta Becerra.
Yes.
Daniel Carlino.
Yes.
Jordan Hess.
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Jordan,
Yes.
Mike Nugent,
Yes.
Jennifer Savage,
Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
Yes.
Sandra Vasica,
Yes.
Heidi West,
Yes.
and Stacy Anderson. I show Stacy in attendance, but maybe she's having some computer issues.
That
So
could be. We'll just count her as maybe absent for this
for
vote.
this one, okay, that sounds good. So that is 10 yeses and 2 absent.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. So for our next item, we are returning to the discussion on our new city council rules. And I believe where we left things last time around was that Jordan had made a motion and that Sandra had amended that motion. And I believe we still need to take public comment, which there isn't any public on Sandra's motion, which or amendment, and we need to close out the discussion around that amendment and then get back to Jordan's original motion. So, and I believe Sandra's motion was to take out the language around. Oh shoot! Now I lost my page. Where is our most recent draft? Oh, sorry, I will not remember the exact language.
If I may,
Yes.
Jordan had his hand up first.
Okay,
but,
Jordan.
Oh, actually, Sandra, if you would restate your motion, that would be great.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to take out the remove quote, no person may engage in name calling or personal attacks, indulge in personalities, an invidious or derogatory remark made to or about a person or their character, conduct, appearance, etc., impugn motives of members, other members of the public or staff, and that's it. I'm okay with the rest of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so Jordan, is it on this motion?
Well, yeah, and I was wondering if you were okay with it, Heidi, if we could maybe ask Marty to give a brief recap of any changes that have occurred
Yes.
since the last meeting.
Absolutely.
Hello, everybody. Hang on, let me share my screen here. I have a draft I want to share with you all. There's a new draft that's attached, as well as you can reference the one that was presented in committee the last time we looked at this. In short, Sandra's motion is to amend the decorum at meetings rule and to amend it to say no person may use loud, threatening, abusive, indecent, or profane language, etc. And so that is the motion that is before you right now. Between the last meeting and this meeting, I met with Jordan and Heidi and Gwen, and we tried to do a little clarification about what indulging in personalities or impugning motives of members might be. And so here's some language for your consideration. That indulging in personalities is to treat somebody with disrespect and make comments or noises while another person is recognized to speak. I have seen this happen to members of the public where somebody will cough and use derogatory remarks while they're coughing, or squeak or making noises, etc. I haven't seen a lot of ridicule, but that was in the Webster's dictionary or whatever dictionary I would use to look up indulge in personalities. And then to use contemptuous or dismissive language or behavior that's directed toward a person. I think that there's a line to be drawn between directing it toward a person and, folks can be contemptuous and use dismissive language regarding an agenda item. But this keeps it out of the personal direction. And then impugning motives would be to imply that a person is not entirely honest or honorable absent facts. So if you have factual information about a person's lack of honesty or honorability, I think that would be in order under this particular proposal. But if there are no facts that can be brought to bear, then it's just merely assuming that somebody's not honest or honorable. So that's the proposed change that we're looking at for decorum at meetings. There's Sanders' motion here, which is to return to the language that has existed in council rules for a really long time, or consider this proposed language or new language if you wish to introduce an amendment. There's two other changes, little clarifications to the rule that I wanted to highlight while I still have the floor, if that's okay, Heidi. The first is to incorporate the proposal for the names of the standing committees of city council. So that's coming down here under, I think it's going to be the new rule 20 under committees and subcommittees. And this just reflects the new names of the committees. And I'll let Jordan speak to more about that if he wishes. And then finally, we had a clarification down here about the appointments of board members. We found that there was a little hole in our procedure there to allow the chair to have the responsibility to bring applicants to the committee who have interviewed for a board in the past 12 months. So sometimes you might have done a set of interviews 9 months ago. You had 3 great candidates. You could only choose one of them, or maybe you could choose 2 of them and had to leave somebody to the side. That this particular change to the rule would empower the chair to bring that applicant who was not selected within the past 12 months to the committee without an interview, just to be considered for a newly vacant position. So those are the changes. And I will stop sharing and answer questions.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Marty. Amber?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the last one, and then I wanted to comment on the amendment. So
Amber, can we keep it to the amendment right now so we can finish that up?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank
So
you.
I'll start there. Okay, sorry. I'm always writing lots of notes. So, you know, my concern around taking that middle part out is mainly because my concern with Sanders' amendment, I guess, is mainly because it's not just applying to us, it's also applying to the public. And I think that, you know, while all of us sign up for this job, knowing that we need to have thick skin and recognizing that we're going to, you know, it's just a job that requires you not to be super sensitive to things. There are a lot of the public that is not used to standing up there and commenting, that gets really nervous to stand up and comment. And if they also have any kind of harumphing behind them or whatever, I think it just makes it less of an environment that is welcome and open to the public being involved. So I like the clarity on the full motion, the full, I like the clarity of it without the amendment. So I won't be supporting it for that reason, primarily.
All right, thank you. I've got Sandy next, and then Daniel and Mirta.
Thanks. So I just wanted to point out that the other part where it says you can't use loud, threatening, abusive, indecent, or profane language. I'm pretty sure that coughing and saying, "Oh, you're an idiot," is very indecent. So I don't think that having that other part or the first part in there is really necessary. And I think it will make a lot of people not want to come into council because they're gonna be like, well, I'm here, I'm gonna be passionate. I might accidentally say that, oh, Elvis isn't dead, the earth is flat. And apparently you can't do that. So you're going to get kicked out of council. So I mean, we had an incident about a year ago with another person who said indecent things, and I'll leave it at that. So that's my reasoning on that.
All right, Daniel?
Yeah, I think the current writing of this is a little bit vague and allows for censorship of public comment at times. And like kind of an example with the false language and whatever it says on there for talking about false claims. Like, for example, if somebody had said a year ago, oh, cloth masks don't work, like we don't have any science, I think it would have been very likely that they would have gotten cut off there in the comment because it seemed to be false. But then now it's kind of commonly agreed upon that only like the N95 masks or surgical masks work. So I feel like science is always changing, and what could be perceived as false at the time could turn out to be true. And I just don't think we should leave all this gray area to be able to cut people's comments off. So I'd like to amend this in some fashion. So I plan to support this amendment.
Marty, did you wanted to provide some more clarification? Where did Marty go?
You're muted.
That's right. All right. This doesn't mean that somebody can't say something that isn't untrue. It is impugning the motives of members. So it is about your motivation in taking the stand, a person's stance about their stance, their motivation for taking a stance. You could say the sky is black. That's not impugning the motive of someone else. But to say that, for example, I must be colluding because of some falsehood that I'm putting forward, that is impugning my motive. And so this is personal about the motive of a person, not stating a falsehood. If you have something that you think that's an elected official or public person that's speaking publicly is not being entirely honest about, and it's within the fiduciary, it's within the responsibility to point that out if you have facts. But without facts, you wouldn't impugn the motive of a member. So that's clear. It's about personhood. It's not about facts in and of themselves. Okay. Or at least that was my intent in drafting. So we make it clear. I'm happy to do it.
Thank you, Marty. I think that's a very important distinction. I think we are very receptive to public comment on all sorts of things, even things that are outside of our sphere of control. And I wouldn't want to discourage that sort of an environment. So, Nirita?
Thanks. What Marty just said, I think summarizes what I wanted to come in, and that this is about personhood. And as we continue to work on being more diverse, more inclusive, my hope is that this body will look different than it does right now, that it is more diverse, that it is more inclusive. My hope is that the public that participates in a lot of these meetings will be more diverse. So in light of all of that, I think it's incredibly important to have decorum rules that will allow for respectful conversations, respectful dialogue. And it's important to set rules for behavior that allows for that inclusivity we're working so hard to bring to City Council and the city and the community at large. With that, I feel that we have gotten to give a lot of thought to this one portion of the rules, and I would like to call the question.
I believe that's in order. And if I remember right, that's not debatable. And so we'll take a vote on this item, on this amendment.
Point of order.
No,
Oh, yeah.
Take a vote on whether or not to end debate.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. That is the way to do it. Yes. Let's do that.
All right. Okay, let's see. Stacy Anderson,
Yes.
Mirta Becerra,
Yes.
Daniel Carlino,
No.
John Jackson, Jordan Hess,
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Jordan,
No.
Jim Nugent, or Mike Nugent, I'm so sorry. I'm working from a sheet of names with just the last name, I apologize.
that's all right. No,
Jennifer Savage,
Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
Yes.
Sandra Vasica,
No.
Heidi West.
Yes.
So that is 7 yeses and 4 noes.
All right. So now we'll vote on the amendment. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So let's go ahead and vote on Sandra's
Oh,
amendment.
Quick question. So a yes vote means that my amendment passes and a no vote means it does not.
Yes.
Okay. So Mirta Becerra,
No.
Daniel Carlino,
Yes.
Jordan Hess,
No.
Gwen Jones,
No.
Kristen Jordan,
No.
Mike Nugent,
no,
Jennifer Savage,
No.
Amber Sherrill,
No.
Sandra Vasica,
Yes.
Heidi West,
No.
and Stacy Anderson.
No.
So that is 9 noes and 2 yeses and 1 absent.
Okay. Thank you. So now we are back to the main motion. And I have Stacy's hand up. Stacy, you want to go ahead?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So we're back on the amendment. So the language that Marty drafted and presented to us that provides the most clarification, I think we've gotten to this point about what it is to impugn personalities or whatever, is that do I need to bring forward a amendment to include that language that Marty drafted? Or is that sort of?
So I think, Jordan, did you want to amend your original motion to include the most recent version that Marty showed?
That's my
Would that be the
intention.
cleanest way to do it?
Yeah,
Okay,
I believe so. And that was my intention.
okay,
Then I have
perfect.
nothing to say then.
All right. All right. So the next person on the docket then is Amber.
Okay, so sorry, I'm confused too. I'm confused with all these amendments and calling it questions. So now the motion on the floor is for, are we talking about just that one portion of the?
So
of the
my
change?
my understanding is it would be the 3 different sections that Marty just presented on. So it would be the language around the decorum rules, the renaming of the committees, as well as the 3rd item, which was the new process for appointing or board members, so we don't constantly have to be re-interviewing people. And
So it's now a good time for me to make my comment on the 3A4, which is the re-interviewing.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Confusing process. So Marty, I'm wondering, would you throw that back up there maybe? So here's my concern, and I'd like to know what other council people think. We just had this situation in Parks and Conservation for the appointment to the Energy and Climate team. because we had interviewed someone before. And I was asked if I wanted to re-interview, and we elected to do that because we had four new counselors that had not actually ever even interviewed that person. So my thinking at the time was not that the people that had sat through the interviews needed any additional information from him, but that, I mean, how could Kristen Jordan vote on someone that she's never actually interviewed and just seen on a piece of paper? So, not to single you out, Kristen, just all the new council people, but so I'm wondering if we could make some amendment to this, Marty, of making sure people have actually interviewed, that all sitting council people have actually interviewed that person. And I'd like to hear what people think about that.
So Marty, go ahead and respond to that. And I just want to point out that the language is that the committee chair has the discretion. It doesn't mean that they have to do it that way, but Marty, go ahead.
That's what I had my hand up to say. So I think that's a judgment call, the way the rule is drafted by the chair. It was great insight on your part, Amber, to recognize that you had 4 folks on council who didn't know these candidates and hadn't had the benefit of doing interview. So there is discretion here, but if you would like to be a bit more clear about when that discretion should be wielded, we can certainly look at some language for number 4 to provide that clarity. But it's not a shall, it's a shall. It's the committee chair has the discretion to bring applicants, or you can go through the interview process.
May I have a follow-up, Heidi?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I would like to make, we're making these rules in all of these categories for worst case scenario kind of situations, as I pointed out with Sandra's amendment. So I think, I don't know exactly how I want to amend it, but I do not feel like it's fair to have someone vote on someone that they haven't interviewed. And so while I'd like to think that the committee chair in all of perpetuity will recognize that, I'm not, I think we need to write it where it's clear. That doesn't seem like a fair position to put a council person in to me. I don't know. Do you have any proposed?
So I have a quick comment, Amber. Okay. Just twice recently, we have basically, created these subcommittees that have interviewed a whole host of applicants, one for the Housing Trust Fund Committee, or getting the name wrong, and one for the Local Food Policy Board. And in that situation, we had a smaller subgroup of council members that were involved, and then we honored that subgroup's recommendation. And so I get what you're saying, but I'm wondering if it could also potentially be too narrow, just because things I've experienced in my time on council wouldn't necessarily always fit that. It wouldn't always be exactly that process, if that makes sense. Kristen, do you want to ask a question or comment?
I don't know if this is the right place to bring this up. I do actually want to insert some just entirely new language on the agenda piece of this document, but I don't know if that conversation's if that's the right time to have this conversation, because we're right in the middle of this.
Yeah, let's finish taking comments and suggestions on this item.
Yeah,
we'll just put that on I'm writing it down. We'll get back to that. So Marty, how about, I think I'll go to you next, then Mike and Gwen.
I'm sorry, I just didn't take my hand up.
Oh, okay. Then let's do Mike.
Yep, thanks. I appreciate Councilwoman Cheryl's concern. But I mean, as a new councilor, my observation is there are times where we voted on people we didn't get an interview for other types of positions. And my biggest takeaway from the interviews we did have is I kind of felt bad for the people that were having to interview twice in 9 months. So I guess my thought would be that if there's enough people that on council who'd be concerned that they didn't get to participate in the interview, they could always vote no or bring a different motion to change that. So I would hate to pin us in too much and take away flexibility, but that's just kind of a new person's opinion on that.
Thank you, Mike. Gwen?
I will just briefly say that I think I think it's an interesting point, but I do think it's up to the discretion of the chair. And also, if the chair felt that it was constructive, the chair could advise the newly electeds to look at the prior interviews and read the minutes or watch them. So I think there are some resources there, frankly, to bring them up to speed. I don't know how often this would be used. I think really it would be more of an efficiency thing when, oh, we had a lot of really good people interview and we set it on the record and then we painfully chose one, and then we've got riches to choose from, as opposed to, I don't think this will ever be used for just getting out of interviews. So I'm comfortable with it. I think it's in the right place, but we'll see what happens.
Heidi?
Sorry, I just accidentally changed my screen and I have no idea what I did. Okay, so I can see you again. Jordan, I believe your hand is up next.
Heidi, could I make a comment? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Just to maybe move things along. I think that, which is why I said I want to hear from other counselors. I think there's enough compelling reasons that it doesn't make sense to change that. It's just something I noticed that I had happened recently. So I'm not going to be making that amendment, if a proposed amendment, if someone else wants to go ahead, but I thought that might help with the conversation.
Perfect. Thank you, Amber. Sandra.
I was just gonna say I agree with Amber. I can't remember who it was, but if you interviewed 9 months before and then you had a good interview, then a lot of things change in that amount of time. And a job interview is a pivotal first impression. So I think that everybody who interviewed for that, just because you did the best a couple of months ago, doesn't mean you're going to do the best now. So I guess that's my thoughts. But the amendment's no longer on the floor, so never.
All right, so I think we'll return to Kristen's items since we're switching topics. So we're going all the way up to, where was it, agenda?
Yeah.
Items?
Rule 21.
Perfect, okay.
So I know that this conversation that I'm about to bring forward has happened in the past. I'll start with the caveat that I'm not sure if this is the right place to put this request, and I think there's going to be some new discussion that needs to be had, but I would really like to recommend that we put in a requirement to have a land acknowledgement in our meeting rules, because it is a way to be inclusive and to start to repair some of the harm we've had. And I know that there have been conversations on this in the past. I, as a side note, or on a side project with Shane Barnett recently, and he told me that he was just asked by the county to draft a land acknowledgement that they're going to start using at their meetings. And I think that it would make a lot of sense for the city to follow suit. Shane has created language. I have that language I could share. I guess my only thing I don't know is where something like this gets written down, that it's part of a meeting. But I thank you, Heidi. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there actually is something in the works already. So I'll turn it over to Gwen, because I believe I heard her talking about this at some point recently.
Right. Thanks, Kristen. I really appreciate that. And what can I say? Great minds think alike. Actually, this fall, I had a lot of conversations with people about pursuing a land acknowledgement. And the mayor and I met extensively. And then the mayor and I had a really good conversation with Chairwoman Fiant from the tribe. And my takeaway from the conversation was that although there can be value in a land acknowledgement, there is not necessarily consensus amongst Indigenous peoples as to the value of that. And frankly, sometimes it causes more harm than good. And did not get a strong message that that would really be a good thing to do. But frankly, the much better thing to do would be to strengthen relationships between city, local government, and the tribes. And that was something to pursue. And then a week and a half later, they had elections. And now they have a new chair and new people in elected posts. And the mayor and I decided to hit pause. And as we all know, when you start, it's drinking from a fire hose. So give them some time to get settled. And then hopefully this spring, kind of pick that up again in terms of having conversations as to how to strengthen those relations. So I would love to sit down and talk with you and see what Deshane is coming up with. But it was really interesting because I feel like it's always a well-intentioned step, but Chairwoman Fayant had some really interesting stories about how land acknowledgements have gone sideways and not necessarily seen consensus there. So that's what I can share at this point. So I would recommend that I think if we want to do something like that in the future, we can always add it in. I mean, we also do the Pledge of Allegiance when we're in person, and that's not in our agenda necessarily. I think we can always add, it doesn't have to be included in the rules, but it is, I appreciated it that it is a more complex conversation than, oh, let's just do land acknowledgement. And I was like, okay, we need to back it up and kind of see how we can make this constructive. So that's what I can share with you at this point, if that helps. But I love figuring out how to go in that direction to basically have better relations and more communication and respect and honor each other more through those venues.
Thanks for providing that context. Kristen, and is it still on this topic or a different? Okay, so go ahead, and then Jennifer has her hand up and Jordan does as well. So
Jennifer may have been before me. Do you want to go, Jennifer?
Oh, sure. I was just going to comment on Ms. Jones' comment as well. So when I was working at the Headwaters Foundation, we had a similar conversation about land acknowledgements, and we were working with one of our staff people at the time actually was doing a fellowship with a Native American philanthropy group, and they had similar things to say about land acknowledgements and cautioned us from diving into one sort of in a super quick way, and encouraged us to really research sort of other ways of acknowledgement. And there were some articles that were put out by Indigenous groups at the time. I can try and dig those up as well, but I just wanted to say that that's something that I've come across as well professionally.
Okay, Kristen?
Thank you. Yeah, I feel really strongly about this. I think if nothing else, we need to reach out to members of the Native American community again and find some new information. I also think that since the county is doing it, it makes sense for the city to consider doing it as well. This particular, I just sent you all the wording that the county is considering. I think it's gone through BCC for approval. I think this was the final, these are the final words. And it's most likely been approved by now to be used in county meetings. But the difference in this particular land acknowledgement is that it has a call to action. My understanding about previous land acknowledgements that have been unhelpful are that they are an acknowledgement, but they don't have a call to action in them. And this one does. And I think that given the fact that, you know, it was written by a prominent member of our community and the Native American community, that the county is going to start doing this at their meetings, and that this one has a call to action in it that's different than other land acknowledgements that I've seen and that I've heard used, that we need to take the time to consider this, right? I would compel us to consider this now rather than later. Thank you.
So Jordan, I'll go to you. I think you're next. And then we don't necessarily have an amendment at the floor at the moment. Are you? We're a little off subject, I think.
Yeah. Sorry. Who are you talking to?
Sorry, let's go ahead and go to Jordan real quick, and then Stacy has her hand up as well.
So I'm really excited about continuing to explore this. I really appreciate the work that that Gwen and the mayor had done with Chairwoman Fayant, and I really appreciate this this template from the county that you sent, Kristen. And I think it absolutely warrants discussion and discussion in a timely manner. I personally think that a resolution would be a good vehicle for this, because a resolution has the opportunity to put in the whereas clauses that can have a wide range of explanatory background, and those resolutions would be city policy that would go beyond just the city council. So a resolution could impact boards and commissions, or it could impact staff meetings or neighborhood council meetings or other public meetings. So I think my sentiment is that it's something worth continuing to talk about, and that a more comprehensive approach would probably be a resolution.
Yeah, I really appreciate that context. I think I personally wouldn't feel comfortable just adopting something today without, without having had that direct relationship and conversations with, especially with the people that we're attempting to honor with the resolution. I think that there should be more collaboration on our parts, not just adopting what the county has done, if that makes sense. Stacy?
Yeah, thanks so much. I would kind of echo that sentiment. I don't feel I absolutely agree that we need to be doing more, and something like this is absolutely appropriate. And I was having conversations with council leadership in the fall about moving this, and was but really want to take our lead from, as Heidi said, the folks that we are really actually wanting to center in this acknowledgement, and feel like without consultation and lead and kind of direction from the tribe. And I appreciate that the county has already engaged with Deshane, and that's great that they've done their process. So I don't feel like we've done the due diligence on our end. And I like Jordan's idea of a more broad scope resolution, because it would be much more broad reaching than just what is in our council rules. And without kind of indirect consultation. I know that, we've gotten better. We have so much more work to do on this, but, in regards to the renaming of the Bear Tracks Bridge and things like that, really, making sure that those folks who we're trying to honor are centered in the conversation and leading it, and really, I feel more comfortable in that sort of space. And so doing a resolution would be a broader base and an opportunity to have them really weigh in on the language and have more of a thorough discussion about it, and why it's important, and what it means, and what the call to action means, than it would just within the council rules portion that we're debating right now.
Yeah, and with that, I was wondering if we could return back to the council rules that are in consideration at this moment. I think we'll continue. This is obviously a conversation that has been happening already, and there are many different voices that need to be heard and included before I feel like we can make it. It's not a quick decision that I think we can make right now. So with that, Stacy, is your hand still up on something else on these rules? Okay, so then the next person in line is Sandra.
Thanks. First of all, if somebody wanted to make a referral about this, what committee would it go to?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
If somebody wanted to make, like if Kristen wanted to make a referral for this, what committee would it go to?
Well, I think maybe probably committee of the whole would be my guess. And I think that Kristen would, I think it would be great if everyone that has been working on this prior to the new council members being on council could, touch base and get caught up on what conversations have been had and where we are, because it obviously is a topic that has been in discussion for a while.
But that wasn't my question.
So yeah, but it would go to Cal.
Okay.
the referral would go to Cal.
No, that wasn't why I raised my hand
sorry.
though. I just wanted
Okay,
to
go ahead. Got
put
it.
an end to that. So I do have an issue when the council rules changing admin and finance to housing, redevelopment, and community programs. I guess that's the one it's changing, right?
Yeah, there's a.
Yeah, I think so. So I guess
again.
I think it'll really confuse the public because a lot of the public is really concerned about our finances. So then they won't know which committee to go to when they want to go to like financial decisions. I mean, I guess every committee has financial decisions, but
most of what we do is financial decisions. Let's see, Jordan, would you like to speak to that?
I made an error in what I sent around. There's supposed to be a seventh committee, which replaces Budget Committee of the Whole, and that's chaired by the council president, and it's Budget and Finance. And so it's actually intended to elevate that to a kind of a broader committee of the whole audience, even though we're all kind of on all the committees now. That wasn't the case, I think, several years back. But that was the intention. So I can include that and send it back around.
My concern is alleviated. Thank you.
Awesome. Good catch. Because that makes more sense. All right, Gwen.
Yeah, if I can just add on to that. Previously, we had BCAL, Budget Committee of the Whole, and we did the budget underneath that. And then all budget amendments came through admin and finance, and you had different people running them. So this actually puts all of the budget and finance stuff in one place for the budget under one person. So there's actually a lot more continuity. And so, yeah, I hope that's clear.
Perfect. Jordan, do you still have your hand up, or is it? Nope. Okay. And then Kristen, yep. The hands keep going up and down. I think Kristen, your hand is up and means to be up.
Oh, mine up there in that last second. So then I guess if I understand everything properly, then I can make a motion to send this conversation to Cal, or am I missing something?
So the conversation about the land acknowledgement. Yes. So I think Marty, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, it's not a motion, it's a referral.
Thank you.
So you don't need to have a committee vote in order to initiate a referral to a committee.
Okay, so yeah, I'd like to refer that issue to the CAO.
We can work with you on working on a memo, and you should have a proposed piece of legislation. You should have a resolution drafted for the council's consideration, so they have something to say yes to. And we're happy to. We'll have a little confab and get that drafted.
Okie doke. Thank you.
Awesome. Perfect. Gwen?
Yeah, I would say since the mayor and I had discussions this fall regarding it, Kristen, I'll reach out and maybe we should set up a meeting and discuss. Typically, a lot of work usually goes into something before you even write the referral. So let's get together and discuss, and I'll reach out to you. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so we are back to, I think, the overall document. Mirta.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing about what you just said, and I promise I'll stop after that. But yeah, as there were several of us that were working on land acknowledgements. But what I wanted to point out is that we have resolutions that sort of intersect with that potential language. So as you prepare the referral, please make sure that you see what we already have that's been included in a lot of policies. The Housing Trust Fund Citizen Committee, Oversight Committee included a lot of information, especially about our Native American population. So there's a lot of information right there already, as well as in the JEDI resolution that was specifically tailored to acknowledge our demographics. So just pointing out that there are some resources out there. So as you prepare whatever information, make sure to include that so that we're not, so that it all jives. That's, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's always a lot of different groundwork that's been laid to draw from and keep building on. So are there any other comments or questions about the rules overall? I think we're back to the original motion with the amendments with the amendments that Marty showed us today and the cleanup on the committee names. Jordan?
And I just circulated the list of committee names again with budget and finance included. I also wanted to express that the intention of my motion is that these committees are, there's an analog to the older committees. So climate conservation and parks obviously is parks and conservation. And so the intention here is that the committee chair assignments would just transfer over. So housing, redevelopment, and community programs Heidi would remain chair of that committee, and we wouldn't go through that process again. That's the intent. And if I just wanted to make that intention known in case there was any objection to that, basically.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. Sandra?
When there is public safety and health and city operations, isn't public works city operations?
So my understanding, it's more that like IT and those sorts of city operations. I think, Jordan, you can describe better which departments fall under city operations, but it's not it's separate from public works.
Yeah, it was really central services, the central services department within the city. I think actually Marty suggested we use central services early on, and I included city operations because I felt like that was more nomenclature wise. I felt like central services was something that the public wouldn't really that wouldn't resonate with the public. But I do appreciate that when you say that, Sandra, that yeah, streets and plowing and public works, all that stuff feels very operations focused as well. So I'd defer to Marty or others. I mean, it's basically internal city operations, IT, attorney, all that kind of city clerk, all that kind of internal stuff. It was the intention.
Let's see, Sandra?
I would prefer to add internal city operations, but I want to hear what Mirta has to say first.
Mirta?
So the way I understand that it's under public works, but what it does is essentially what we did today with Scott Caldwell, bring in all the like truck purchases that go to a lot of different departments within the city, not just public works. So I don't really think there's anything. I don't see a problem with it moving to another committee and calling it something different that's more encompassing for what it actually does, if that makes sense.
Let's see. Got no more hands up. Is there anybody else? Sandy, are you okay with the language as it is?
Yeah, as long as Mirta's okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Okay, perfect. Then we'll move forward. Are there, let's see, I have one hand up in attendees. Let's see, let's go ahead and finish. Are there any other comments or questions about anything else in the proposed city council rules from council? And then we'll go to public comment. I saw a hand up and then disappeared. Okay, Stacy. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, glitchy internet. Thanks everyone for the robust discussion. Want to really thank Gwen and Jordan and Marty for all the work on all of this. And it does look like we're wrapped up, so I don't need to call the question, but so just good stuff, everyone. And I'm happy to have these rules adopted. Better late than never.
Okay, Gwen?
You know, I just wanted to note, I know that Daniel had forwarded a proposed amendment weeks ago, as a courtesy to have that language. I just don't know if Daniel, you still want to pursue that or not. I just didn't want it to be overlooked because I did appreciate the courtesy of you sending it out ahead of time.
Yeah, Daniel?
No, I decided not to go ahead with that amendment, but thanks, Gwen. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for the reminder, Gwen. I would have hated if it got left out on accident. Sandra?
Like the mayor said earlier, not to beat a dead horse, but I just wanted to know on the record, I am still unhappy with that my amendment did not get voted through, but in light of that, I will still vote yes on the whole of the changes of the city rules. So I will do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. And then we have one attendee in our attendee room, I'll call it. So let's go ahead and take comment from Matt Larson, and then we'll move on to a vote. Do I need to do anything on my side? Oh, nope, there he is. All right.
Hi, this is Matt Larson. Thanks again for allowing me to speak. I don't know what Carlino's amendment was, but it would be nice to allow the public to see what was being discussed prior to it being shot down or not pursued by Carlino, because I think it's relevant. But, you know, the reforming of these rules is probably, you know, a good idea to do every once in a while. Although, you know, I think that the city council has flexed these rules, particularly against me, even before imposing them or approving them, by way of shutting off my ability to speak at an open meeting. And it's been misused numerous times. I'm still banned from calling or emailing any city or city office or city department, which is unilateral from Jim Nugent. And that's ridiculous. I have been participating for years in this process in the city council. And, you know, if you guys don't like emails, then just don't read them, I guess. But my ability to call, I essentially have to call, I can call 911. That's all I can do right now from my personal phone. And that is utterly ridiculous and a restriction of people's rights. You know, I have the right to participate in this meeting, but I have no right to email anyone anything regarding the meeting. That's ridiculous. And so go ahead and pass all the rules that you want, but you're violating people's rights to speak and participate in open meetings. So it really doesn't matter what the rules are if you're not going to follow the most basic state law.
All right. Thank you for your comments. And with that, I guess I see Daniel has his hand up. I'll let you make one last comment, and then I think we'll move on to a vote.
Yeah, and the amendment I was proposing is on the public emails, but it was actually something that was only pertaining to virtual meetings, so I just decided not to go ahead with it. But I think some of us do hear the concerns about censorship and things, and Sandra Viseca brought an amendment forward to try and address that. But yeah, I think it's just something that we can keep in mind in the future. But thanks.
All right, just, you know, these are city council rules for a city council space, and don't go over into, they don't cover administrative rules. So yeah, so let's go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Sorry, Heidi,
wait, Sandra.
Is there going to be a public hearing about this, or is this just adopting it once and for all and then it's going to council?
Let me look back at the schedule. Sorry,
there isn't a public hearing. There isn't a public hearing on city council rules. So
okay, then I'm changing my vote. I'm going to say no because I want to put it on committee report so there can be more public discussion about this. Sorry for the interruption.
Sounds, I mean, we could also put it on committee reports with a unanimous vote. I think that's been done twice today. Jordan, what's your comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say just that I think you could request that it go on committee reports, and I think that's totally appropriate, given given that it's something that affects the body pretty broadly. So I'd support that too.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I think we had 2 items earlier on the agenda that both were passed unanimously, and we are still having them in committee reports because they are big deals and the public should be aware. So I'm happy to put this on committee reports for Monday nights, and then we can just make sure that we can encourage that more. It's not lumped in with all of our other items on the consent agenda. So yeah, let's go ahead and have a roll call vote.
All right. So who made the original motion, Heidi?
Jordan.
Jordan, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So we have, Daniel Carlino.
Yes.
Pardon me, okay, there we go. Jordan Hess.
Yes.
Gwen Jones.
Yes.
Kristen Jordan.
Yes.
Mike Nugent.
Yes.
Jennifer Savage.
Yes.
Amber Sherrill.
Yes.
Sandra Vasita.
Yes.
Heidi West.
Yes.
Stacy Anderson.
Yes.
And Mirta Becerra.
Yes.
So that's unanimous for all in attendance.
All right, thank you so much. A big thank you to everyone who worked really hard on this, and to Brian von Lossberg, who spent a lot of time on this as well before he ended his tenure on council. And we are done almost an hour early, so enjoy that extra hour in your day. And with that, we'll be adjourned.